Before they died, my parents told me stories of how the world once was. What it was like long before I was born. Before the war with the machines. They remembered a green world. Vast and beautiful. Filled with laughter. And hope for the future. But it's a world I never knew. By the time I was born, all this was gone. Skynet. Before they died, my parents told me stories of how the world once was. What it was like long before I was born. Before the war with the machines. World. Vast and beautiful. Filled with laughter.
There was a crackdown by the Iranian government on the internet access of its citizens. And SpaceX decided to activate Starlink over Iran, or at least to announce that it is active there to support freedom of speech in the country.
For a lot of people in rural areas and remote areas, Starlink have been able to provide a very good connectivity. We've had cases in Brazil, cases in Rwanda, where Starlink was able to provide connectivity for schools in remote and rural areas.
Then there are times of war. Just before Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, it launched a series of cyber attacks on the country's internet, crippling the Ukraine military's communication capabilities. With Russian troops closing in and Ukraine's defenses in disarray, the country's digital minister turned to Twitter, pleading with Musk for help. Within hours, he responded, saying that Starlink had been activated in Ukraine and terminals were on the way. The intervention restored vital communications, with an internet service resistant to Russian interference, helping Ukraine's military launch a counter-offensive.
It was the main way of communicating on the battlefield. They would use it to connect their drones and coordinate drone attacks against Russian troops, and they would use it just to communicate with each other, like commanders and officers.
It used our own bombs against us. 3 billion people died in the nuclear fire. Survivors called it Judgment Day. People lived like rats in the shadows. Hiding, starving, or worse, captured and put into camps for extermination.
Moscow and its surrounding areas were hit by a massive drone attack in the early hours of July 20th. According to local Telegram channels, residents of Zelenograd, a suburban town, reported hearing explosions. Several buildings were damaged. In one residential area, 2 cars were set ablaze, likely due to debris from a drone that was shot down. In the village of Galyub, locals described the explosions as so intense that the walls and windows of their homes rattled. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin reported that Russian air defenses intercepted at least 16 drones approaching the city. This led to a temporary suspension of operations at all Moscow airports, including Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Vnukovo, and Zhukovsky.
Well, the ongoing war in Ukraine is taking a serious turn for the worse. With all eyes on the Middle East, Russia has been raining down hundreds of drones and missiles on the capital, Kiev. One strike hit a multi-story residential building, splitting it in two and leaving a huge gap where hundreds of homes were just moments before. Emergency workers
released drone footage of Wednesday's huge missile attack on Syria's military headquarters. According to the Israeli military, the Damascus location is where Syrian regime commanders direct combat operations. The missile strike was captured on multiple live news broadcasts on Wednesday afternoon.
With the outside world, which was very crucial for Ukraine.
There's a video by the New York Times where you can see a helicopter landing in Mariupol, a Ukrainian helicopter. And it lands in the Azovstal steel plant that is surrounded by Russian troops. And what this helicopter does is it takes out wounded soldiers, but not before bringing in a Starlink terminal. So you can already see they grew dependent on it.
But depending on a privately owned company with an unpredictable owner in the middle of a war can leave you compromised. By October, Ukrainian forces reported Starlink outages over the front lines, possibly due to SpaceX blocking its own signal, a practice called geofencing. Musk would not disclose the reason for the outages, saying that the information was classified. When Ukraine requested Starlink access in Crimea to target Russian warships, SpaceX refused. Musk said that it would make the Starlink team complicit in a major act of war. However, at the time, he was alleged to be in talks with Vladimir Putin, making it unclear if he reached that decision alone. Musk has denied these allegations, but despite that, the war in Ukraine was a trial by fire for SpaceX, and the world was watching.
The conflict in Ukraine was a showcase of Starlink's abilities for two audiences. The first audience was investors. Bloomberg reported that in 2023 there were tender offers to SpaceX that raised its value so that now it's the second most valuable private company in the world. And the second audience then are political leaders and military leaders, because in times of geopolitical tensions, what you really need is a system that reduces your vulnerabilities to the outside, particularly in communications. SpaceX received a lot of government contracts also following the war in Ukraine, particularly from US departments that are related to defense.
Earlier this year, Reuters revealed that a US intelligence agency was paying SpaceX $1.8 billion to build a global spy network called Starshield. Described as the most advanced surveillance system ever, Starshield will give the US government the power to track targets almost anywhere on Earth in close to real time. Now, global powers from Russia to China and the EU are scrambling to launch their own satellite constellations. The space race has a new frontier, low Earth orbit. Only this time, it is not being led by a government or its space agency. Instead, it's an unelected billionaire. All that stands between Elon Musk and a near monopoly of this critically important technology are US regulations. But with Donald Trump returning to the White House,
and his rocket company is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space.
The question is, for how long?
Take over, Elon, just take over.
We requested an interview with SpaceX. The company did not respond.
FCC hasn't granted SpaceX the license to launch 42,000 satellites yet, but Musk has constantly been critical of the FCC, claiming that they are too slow. He essentially wants to eliminate this regulation that he feels is holding back SpaceX and his ambitions in low Earth orbit. So I think once Trump is in government with Elon Musk by his side, that definitely does threaten the FCC because they will want to launch things to space and they'll want to launch things fast.
What is happening with Starlink is actually representative of a broader global trend. And this trend is that an increasing amount of our communication infrastructure on which we rely on every day as individuals, as communities, as states, is in the hands of a few private companies. I think we should take what happened in Ukraine and the involvement of SpaceX and Starlink very seriously. We could clearly see that the decisions being made by SpaceX and Elon Musk substantially influenced the course of the conflict in Ukraine at several points.
Has your ego and ignorance, sir, cost Ukrainian lives? A senior war official says it has.
The worst for infiltration units designed to pass for human. We called them Terminators. then one man found me. His name is John Connor. And he changed everything. John showed us how to fight back. How to rise up. He freed prisoners. Taught us how to smash the machines to scrap. People whisper about John. Wonder how he can know the things he does. They use words like prophet. But John is more. We're here because tonight, he's gonna lead us to